Right, what is going on, guys? Babs here, going to do a putting video with the putting calculator. And this is just going to be, I'm doing the Wolf Creek 18-hole ready go, but it's just going to be nothing but putting. No approach shots, none of that stuff. Just kind of running through what I'm doing with the calculator, what I'm looking for, so forth and so on of that nature. So let's get right into this real quick. So generally what I do, if I'm in this position, 3-wood, obviously couldn't get it too far onto the green. So I'm going to look at the vertical dots, and basically they're moving behind the player. So from the player's point of view, they're moving right to left, if that makes sense. So right to left from the player's point of view. So we got that. Then we have this silly section down here where it's fast and then slow. So I want to know what the fast dots are doing down there. So let's put in our calculator. First of all, I'm not going to use these numbers. I'm going to dumb it down a bit so I don't hit it too hard. So I'm going to do 30 and 14. I'm going to take 2 and 2 off. And that's just something that I've done over time with experience. And so then I'm going to bring my stopwatch out. I'm going to bring this over here, and when I let it go, that's when I start the stopwatch. And I'm just looking at these dots there, bam. So that's when they hit the hole. But I'm not going to use 2.7. I'm going to double this, and I'm going to use 5.4. And I mentioned that kind of in my other video. And just, this is something that I've done over time, helped me get a little closer to the hole. So we got 26 uphill aim, which is roughly 148 or 177. So we'll look at both of them. So I want to look at 148, which is about right there. Ball's going to come up and then die in this area. And then I want to look at 177, which would probably be, that's 12 in this area. And I'm just comparing my two percentage aims to say this ball is going to come up and over. That might be a little too high. So I like to go closer to 148. And that's just something, it might even dovetail a little more. I might use on the high side of 148, so let's say 152. And I'm going to use 60 scale at 57%. We'll just hit that 57%, so that way we don't blow by the hole. This thing early. Ball curves, starts to straighten out. And actually 148 might have been a pretty good number. So that's kind of how I look at that. I take those faster dots and I basically multiply them by 2. And then I, take off some of the numbers. That way I don't hit the ball 5, 6, feet above the hole. And that's just, recognition, and comes with practice. So here we're on hole number 2. Got a pretty good tailwind, so I was able to drive it up onto the green. And so now we're just going to look at this eagle putt and say, okay, well, these dots are moving left to right. These dots are moving right to left. So I want to know how the faster dot at the beginning and the dots at the end going to blend the two. So what I'm going to do is count these dots right here in the middle as my average. And then we'll go from there and see what we get. So I'm going to drag this out here and let it go and start the stopwatch. Looking at these dots right in this area. I get 5.2. We'll just knock the 4 off, put 5.2 up, aim of 23. So we're looking at 128 and 160. So this is 22 and a half. So 128 and 160. So the ball's going to come up and over. And I always want to miss on the high side if I can. So I'm just going to put this on 160. It might miss high, but not the end of the world. Pick this at 34%. So see, slightly high, but if you don't aim high, you don't miss high, you never actually give yourself a chance for the ball to come back down towards. Now, did I count the wrong dots? Maybe. I could have counted slower dots. Could have been the slower dots at the end, so forth and so on. Just a combination of things. But the idea is that you start to get used to what percentages you're seeing and then choose a line that works best for you. So here we unfortunately got a tailwind on the front pin, landed at 206. And the best you can really do in this situation is just try and land it somewhere here without going onto the rough. But then obviously this tailwind's just gonna push the ball on the top shelf. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, how do I handle this situation? So what we're going to do here, and this kind of goes back to my Marion video that I made before, is we're going to take off. So we're going to take roughly 4 inches off of this putt in retrospect to this right here. So we're going to put in 45 minus 18. And that gives us a 38% putt than what we had before. And then when in terms of aiming, look at the vertical dots, make sure they're moving right to left so it's into the putt. And then looking at these horizontal dots that are moving in this area right here, this is what I'm looking at right there. And those are the ones I'm going to count. And then again, I'll just double it, so let go of the flag, start it. These dots right in this area, want to know what they're doing. 6.4, we'll go with 12.8. See if we can get ourselves in a ballpark. So we've got 41. So I go to my initial aim, so that's 22, 30, 37, and then 45. So 31 is in between this line and this whole grid. That's 37. I'm looking at 246 or 295. I'm thinking when this comes off here, just going to come here and dive in like this. But because we have the vertical dots facing, I'm going to leave it on 250 just to make sure I miss on that high side. 38%. And see how the ball actually reaches the hole? Whereas if I were to type in minus 22, I would have had, a 25% putt, which is drastically different. That's almost 16% different. And I only rolled 3 feet past the hole. So that's something that you have to do when you have these downhill putts, is you have to take off elevation in order to get the ball to the hole. And we're playing on 13 greens, so, obviously it didn't roll all the way past the hole and off into the rough. So that's something to, practice with whenever you have those severe downhill elevations. So here, not much really going on with this putt. Just going to use hole numbers like I normally do. And this would be something like this. I would usually type in 8 and 2. Now, how close is that to actual 77 and 2.5? Say it's 30% on the 30 scale. If I were to type that out, still 30 on the 30 scale. But to speed up my round, I just use whole numbers, and that gives me basically the same power percentage. And that way I don't have to worry about hitting decimal places, maybe messing up on what decimal spot I was going to choose, and just pick a whole number. So that's another way that I like to speed my rounds up, is using whole numbers. Here we are on hole number 5. Had a pretty brutal right to left win on this front pin, but we were able to get a heartbeat. And so again, looking at these numbers, I put in whole numbers again, so not to worry about all of that. And then when we're looking at dots, I'm going to hold the flag this time, because as you can see, there's slow dots in the first 2 grids, and there's fast dots at the end. So I'm going to hold the flag with my hand, and 1, 2, 3. And that's when I'm going to point out with the mouse which ones I'm looking at. So 1, 2, 3. And so basically I'm looking at these dots here and these dots to say what looks like the average, where this last dot here looks like the average. So we're going to look at about 10 seconds because I kind of clicked it a little late. And we'll type in 10 seconds. We'll look at our aim. We've got an aim of 10, so 44 or 52. Don't do that. So I'm going to look at 10 and look at 50 and say, okay, this putt's going to come off and it's going to catch some of these faster dots and turn a little. So I want to be on the 52 higher side of this putt. Then we're looking at a power of 35, maybe a little harder. So I'm going to hit it 36, see what happens. Missed late, and we just missed. So that's a combination of things where it's like power and aim. needed to hit that a little harder. All right, here we're on hole number 6. Looking at these dots, these are moving quicker at the beginning than they are at the end. So I want to know what this dot right here is doing. So we're going to flip this over, and we're going to click, and 1, 2, 3, boom. I'm just looking at that third dot basically to see what it's doing and get an idea of what's happening with this putt. We got 6.5, we're downhill 1. So we're looking at an aim of 8, which is 44 or 51. So we'll look at 44, that's our first aim. So the ball is going to come up and over. Might catch a little faster dots at the end, so I'm looking at that one. That looks pretty good. Let's try that one right there. That looks like a good line to choose. Catches the slow dots at the end. And so that's me just basically comparing the two percentages between 44 and 51 and recognizing that there are faster dots at the beginning and then there's slower dots at the end. And so I can't neglect the slower dots at the end. By aiming 51, the ball would go too high. And so that's just learning how to choose the best line possible. All right, hole number 8. Nothing fancy happened on hole number 7. Just hit it within a foot of the hole, so didn't really need to worry about videoing that one. So this one had a misting that the wind didn't blow the ball over. So from looking at this initially, it looks like a relatively straight putt. But when you're looking at the vertical dots, it's moving this way behind the player, and then when you're looking at the horizontal dots here, they're moving to the left slightly. And it's slightly moving to the right at the end. So you have to kind of take into account, I'm going looking at these dots right here to see what are they doing. So I'll bring the stopwatch out, and I'm going to click in 1, 2, 3. And these dots right here aren't doing a whole lot, so I'm just going to choose a number based on the grid and then multiply that to this number right here. So I got 10, so I'm going to say I'm going to call that maybe 5 seconds. So we'll call this 50. And that's something I've just toyed around with for a while now. So we got an aim of 3 on this uphill putt. And 3 is basically right there. So because these dots are moving to this way at the very end, I want to keep it, as close as possible as I can. And then we have the 60 scale hitting this 35%. Slight misting to the right. It's going to drift left, catch some putts, and go left. And so that's just something I've done over time to speed things up, because obviously I'm not going to wait for those dots to get all the way halfway across the grid. I just start the stopwatch, and then I hit it at a point that looks like, between the grid lines, that looks like it'll take 5 more times to get across to the half grid. And then I multiply that by 5, and then I choose my numbers here, what looks like the best line, take the putts into consideration, and then just, make a final decision and execute. All right, so here we have uphill putt, hole number 10. Looking at these dots are moving quicker than the end dots, so I need to incorporate those, and the vertical dots are moving against the putt. So let's see if we can find out what exactly is happening in 3, 2, 1. Looking at these dots, actually, I'm going to let go, find a better place to put this. That looks like a better speed right there. So 3, 2, 1. Focusing on what these dots are doing. Looking at this dot right here. So we've got about 6 seconds. And we'll type this in to 6. So we've got 11, which is 47, 55. So that's 10. Ball's going to come in, break a little sharply there. Move it out to 55%. Ball's going to come up. Still looks a little low. And that's the question I always ask myself, is if it looks low, add a little more. So I'm going to put that right in that ballpark right there. And then our speed is roughly 22%. Late misting.
Accept call.
And then the putt. Alright, so here we have a uphill putt number 11. And again, I'm using hole numbers, going to look at what these dots are doing. They're not doing much here at the beginning. Going to grab the flag, look at them. They're doing a little more there, so I'm going to grab the flag in 3, 2, 1. And basically see what these dots are doing right in this area, all these three, and go from there. We got 6.9, so I'm going to count it 7 seconds, simply because it's an uphill putt. So we got 7.7. We're looking at 40 or 46. So we'll look at 40 the first, 40% the first one. Ball's going to come in, maybe die a little, add a little more to it. Looks like that might be a better aim right in that area right there. And then I'm going to hit this 28%. Misting late. In the hole. Here we have an eagle opportunity on number 12. The thing about this you have to keep in mind is that these dots aren't doing anything at all. So if you aim for the beginning, you're going to miss really high on this putt. So I'm going to hold the flag and I want to show you what's happening. These dots are moving. These dots are doing anything, aren't doing anything. So I'm going to look at this putt dot right here in 3, 2, 1. And I want to know what this dot is doing right here on this line right there, because these dots aren't doing tad squat. That's going to be about 10.5, we'll call it 10.6. Downhill aim of 5, which is going to be right out in this area. But again, we want to keep in mind those end dots as this ball is finishing, and to say that that's how the putt's going to finish. So I'm going to move it in just a tad bit slightly. We're going to hit this at 24%. Misting late. You can see how it finishes and straightens out. And that's just line recognition. Understanding that, yes, the end of the putt isn't doing a damn thing. So I can't count the fastest dot. Otherwise, my putt is going to be, super fast. It'll be something like 8 seconds. And then I'll have a too high uphill aim, and then I'll just miss completely. So line recognition is crucial right there. Not much happening here. Had a headwind. Just got to keep in mind the vertical dots are moving right to left, and the horizontal dots are moving left to right. So it's basically a straight putt. So I could use my little ram putt sheet right here. 5 feet is 34%, but we're up 2 inches, so I would have to hit it slightly harder than, and then basically 47. So not too crazy a putt here, just gonna whack it in. Good to go. Now here's another one of those putts, we're on 15, it's downhill, not much happening, vertical dots are feeding into the hole, horizontal dots aren't doing much. So as you can see, this is 6.6 down, 2.7, but I don't use that. I use 7 minus 3, get a putt percentage looking like, it might just be one of those ram putts. So I'm going to add 8% to this misting early and feed it towards the hole. And that just kind of speeds the game up for me if I just use hole numbers to not have to worry about all the decimal places. So here we have a pretty decent putt. Actually, just double eagled number 17. So, that was a pretty good shot. Don't get many of those, but now we got to move on and look at this putt and see if we can't put it close to the hole. So here, not the whole putt isn't 26 inches up. So I'm not going to use 26 inches. I'm going to use 56, and I'm going to take off 5. So I'm going to use 21. So you see 5 and 21, that's basically what I'm taking off because I don't want to hit the full power of an uphill 26 shot. So we'll probably use 57% on the 100 scale. So we want to look at all these angles and say, okay, the vertical dots are moving left to right. So that's going to increase what this side break is doing here. And again, what I'm going to do with this side break here is I'm going to, as I've done before, multiply by 2. I'll click the flag, see it's fastest right here, So this right here, it's pretty much all the same. So when I click the flag in 3, 2, 1, let go, and I'm gonna bam, and that's it. So basically I'm gonna put 3.4 into this. 3.4. That gives me an uphill aim of 84. And so this is 4 grids of 60. Okay, so we're looking at this, and then I'm gonna move this to the other side so we can see what we're doing. And I want to put this away, get rid of the flag. So this is 4 grids. So we're looking at 411 as our first percentage, which is right in this ballpark. Okay, this putt's going to come up over this hole. These dots are moving a little bit left to right in this view. So how is that going to catch the putt? That looks a little low to me. So I want to move over to my next number, which is 514, which is going to be here, and say, okay, you know, does that ball look like it's going to come back at all? If it comes up over here, and I'll say that looks a little too high, so I want to split the 2 in half. And I'm just putting a percentage. I'm not expecting to make this putt. I just want to put it somewhere close to where I can have a chance to at least make the birdie when it comes back down. So I'm going to go with that percentage because that looks like a decent close to the hole putt to me. I got 57%. On the 100 scale, early misting. Ball's going to turn a little. And see, we were basically right on line. We just needed a little more power. But that, you know, just comes with practice. Could I have taken off a little bit less than 21? Sure, I could have maybe taken off 2. And hit that 58, you know, about the same. But the key factor in what I just did is that understanding how to use these numbers. Oh, that's not right. How to use these numbers to my advantage to be able to choose a line that looks like the best for how I want to finish. And so that's basically what had happened. I chose the line in this path that looks like the ball coming up over the hill and coming towards the hole. And it turned out that it was a pretty good line, just needed a little more power. And so that completes this putt spreadsheet walkthrough, talk-through, kind of showing you guys how I look at putts, how I view putts. We're looking at this, only dinged it 5 times. See, we got 11 1 putts, a couple of 2 putts because I think I got on the green and did make the eagles, but all in all, good round. And for the most part, you know, that's the calculator, just kind of how to use it, how to incorporate the uphill with the corresponding percentages. And hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if y'all have any questions, and I'll see y'all soon. Take care.